Good morning. This is Valerie Leonard. I am the founder of nonprofit Utopia. I want to say welcome to today's Crowdcast. We're going to be focusing on ways that you can cast a new vision, in light of COVID-19 for your organization. And some of the same rules really apply for for-profit businesses as well. And just give me a moment. I want to bring up our presentation. Okay, and before we get started, I want to say welcome to those of you who are watching here in Crowdcast. Please state your name, tell us where you're from, and what you're looking to gain from this. If you are watching from Facebook Live, you have an opportunity to come and share with us right here in Crowdcast. You can click on to crowdcast.io/e/action-planning-for, and that's FOR hyphen the THE. Again, if you want to join us in Crowdcast, you can, and that way you can participate in the chats. You can join us at crowdcast.io/e/action-planning-for-THE. Alrighty, so we are talking today about action planning for nonprofits for their new normal. And we're just gonna go over, a few steps. We've already focused on how to develop your disaster recovery plan, so we won't go into any detail as to how to create those plans. We did that about a month ago, and we have a link to that Crowdcast here on our Crowdcast page. All righty, and there are a number of webinars that we've done in the past that you can tap into that will provide more detail. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Nonprofit Utopia. As you know, we are the ideal community for emerging nonprofit leaders. We have created a safe environment in which our members can innovate, speak candidly about the issues that they care about on a day-to-day basis, and share ideas and resources. Our mission is to provide the next generation of ethical nonprofit leaders with the tools that they need to survive. We provide ongoing professional development and networking opportunities in which experienced nonprofit professionals can share expertise with the next generation of ethical leaders. The overarching goal of the community is to give our members the tools that they need to develop strong organizations that will make a lasting impact. And our vision is to strengthen the global nonprofit sector by providing training and development opportunities for 50,000 emerging nonprofit leaders throughout the world by 2033. If you want to find out more about us, you can visit www.nonprofitutopia.com, or you can visit nonprofitutopia.mn.co. That is the URL for our online community. Give you a little bit about my organizational development that I hope emerging impact their clients and communities in a very positive way. And I'm also the founder of Nonprofit Utopia, as I indicated before, and we are the ideal community for emerging nonprofit leaders. I host a Nonprofit Utopia internet radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Comes on Mondays at 2 o'clock. We stream live on blogtalkradio.com/nonprofit Utopia. And this is a forum where nonprofit stakeholders can share lessons that they've learned in the industry. I also teach online courses in operations management for UIC Certificate in Nonprofit Management program, as well as social entrepreneurship courses at Roosevelt University in their Heller College of Business. As for my background, I have a Master of Management degree in Finance and Marketing from Kellogg and a BA in Economics from Spelman College. And enough about us and enough about me. The reason why we're here is, we're really focused on COVID-19 and the impact that that has on our ability to conduct business in the nonprofit sector as well as the for-profit sector. We know that after the dust settles from the fallout of COVID-19, it's very likely that the world as we know it will never be the same. We need to rethink our current business models, look at our work environments and ways we can service our clients to maximize impact. And my question to you is your organization ready? So we got a lot to cover today, and we will focus on how to assess your current situation, how to use this information to make decisions to preserve your organization right now. We'll also be talking about how to create a vision for sustainability in a rapidly changing environment. And then we'll show you what you need to do to develop an action plan for the new normal post-COVID-19. So the first thing you want to do is take control of the current situation. And the way you do that is, you want to go through, I guess, a list of self-assessment questions. You want to really understand what were your revenue and cost targets before COVID-19, and what has changed in your operating environment as a result of the pandemic. What has changed with clients, what has changed with funders, what has changed with partners and with other community players, and how are those changes going to impact the way you do sets of questions. You want to determine what's going to be the impact to your bottom line and what are your new revenue and cost targets. And if you were here with us last week, we went through a very detailed explanation as to how you can calculate your current cash flow and then project that through the end of this year. And then we also showed you how to apply for SBA grant funds. So, we're not going to go into detail about those things now. You can look at last week's Crowdcast looking at how to project our cash. So I believe the title was How Long Before We Run Out of Cash? All right. So when you assess your current situation as it relates to funders, you want to look at one, how do you acquire new funders? And two, how do you retain your current funders? So when we look at acquiring new funders, who are some of your prospects that you have in the pipeline? How will you reach them? And will your strategies change any at all in light of COVID-19? And most importantly, what are you going to do to seal the deal, especially when the environment is much more competitive right about now? You've got an increase in number of organizations who need money, and then those organizations are also seeing an increased need for their services. And naturally, funders are going to prioritize the people with whom they're already funding. And you're going to have to think of strategies as to how you can break out from the pack. How can you stand out? What compelling case can you make for them to take a chance on you in this current environment, and knowing that they also need to maintain relationships with their current grantees? And then when you look at your current funders, you got to ask yourself, are you at risk of losing any of your current funders? And if so, what do you need to do to solidify those relationships? And even if you're not in danger of losing those customers or those funders, you need to think about how you're going to continue to solidify those relationships, because you want to be able to move your organization from the middle of the pack to top of mind. You want those funders to think of you in times like these. You want them to think of you first. Are there any corrective actions that you have to take? And if so, what are those actions, and what do you need in order to actually make those moves? And when we look at the clients that you serve, you got to ask yourself, how were you serving clients before COVID-19? Is that still working? Are there new ways that you need to conduct outreach and engagement? Will the way you deliver programs and services need to change? And how can you add value? Have you lost any clients? Are there any clients that you are at risk of losing? And if so, regardless of whether you've lost them, whether you have them, whether you're in danger of losing them, what can you do to bring them back or retain them? And this slide is from On Strategy. I think they had a really, really good booklet to help small businesses to assess their current state and then do emergency planning in light of COVID-19. And I think a lot of the lessons that they shared on the for-profit level can also be applied for nonprofits. And as a result, I just shared this slide. So the first thing you want to do is assess the current state, and you want to do some brainstorming with your team, ideally, obviously with your leadership, but you want to also have this kind of brainstorm with relevant stakeholders depending on what the subject matter is. So you want to look at those external dynamics, and those are those things external to your organization that you don't really control, but you want to address. So some of the opportunity areas are, what are some of the areas where you can add more value, I'm sorry. So how do you add value to your customers and clients? So in the case of the nonprofit, how do you add more value to your funders? Because your funders are customers. How do you add more value to your clients, the people who actually use your programs and services? So how do you add value? How do you add value to your clients? How do you add value to your funders? How do you add value for your partners or potential partners? And how do you add value for your vendors? Because obviously that relationship can be impacted by the new realities. So some examples could be delivering work remotely. In fact, we have no choice in this current environment, providing products at cost, and looking at discounts for pre-bookings. So when we look at those opportunities, we really need to examine, what does that take from an operations standpoint? What activities do we need to engage in? What resources do we need to have? And how is that going to impact our cost structure? And do we have enough money to actually cover that cost? Are we going to actually have to raise new revenue in light of the current situation, right? Or are we going to have to replace revenues that we were counting on? So what are some of the risk areas? And again, you want to look in those same areas: your customers, clients, your funders, your partners, and your vendors. You want to identify those customers whose businesses are at risk. You want to look at the terms and the payment holes. So those all come into play when you're projecting your cash flow from now until the end of the year. You want to take those into account as you make your assumptions as to what your costs are going to be. All right. And then as for your internal resources, let's look at people first. How can you strengthen your team? Are there any processes that need to change? Are there any training opportunities? Are there opportunities to innovate? Whenever you have a crisis, there's always a really wonderful opportunity to find innovative ways of doing what you used to do. And the crisis actually forces us to think outside the box because, under this current environment, we're so restrained. We can't, physically do the things that we used to do. So we have to think of other ways to achieve the same results. And then when we look at our projects, what are the strategic projects? Not every project is strategic. Some projects are nice to have, some projects are must have. So strategically, what projects can actually advance our business? And those are the ones that we really need to prioritize. So we need to look at the goals, we need to look at the objectives, and I'm sorry, and then also oh my goodness, I'm at a loss for words, forgive me. Our goals and our objectives as well as our key indicators. So that's what OKR is. We need to look at our growth strategy creation and new products and marketing campaigns. And then when we look at our cash situation, we need to look at our current sources of cash. What are sources of cash that we may not have right now, but we can turn into cash? Things like lines of credit or equity lines, or in some cases, what can we do to get money in the door quickly? Is there a new product? Is there a new service? Is there a new fundraising strategy like a telethon, phone-a-thon that we can engage in to get cash in the door quickly? So you want to evaluate that. And I really, really like this canvas that On Strategy developed. It's a good way for you to work with your team and engage in brainstorming so that you can get some ideas on a really quick and dirty basis, hopefully more quick than dirty. And I have a feeling you can't really read that screen. It's bare, I can't read it, and I have it. So in that first quadrant, and I'm calling this the first quadrant, we're looking at the opportunity areas. And in this case, we're looking at where you can add more value. So how do you add more value with your customers or clients, the people that you serve? How do you add more value with your funders? How do you add more value with your partners? How do you add more value with your vendors who are actually providing you the goods that you need so that you can develop, or continue to deliver strong products and services? And then as you establish new relationships with vendors, and I'm sure you're going to have to, especially with your new technology vendors, what is it that you can do? How do you create win-win situations where you can preserve cash, right, but still make sure that they win by paying them the value of their service? So it's going to require a lot of negotiation of terms, payment terms. Alrighty, so when we look at our risk areas, again, we're looking at the risk areas to our current clients, our current funders, our current partners, and our current vendors. What is it that's risky? In many instances, the biggest risk is we could lose those relationships, and losing those relationships could mean losing income, or it could mean losing the opportunity to provide goods and services to your clients at a certain cost that you had become accustomed to. In some instances, you may lose a relationship with a vendor, right? And then have to go to another vendor who doesn't give you the same cost. All right. So there's a risk, right? Or there may be a risk of increased costs just because you may have to enter into arrangements with other vendors that you hadn't planned on at the beginning of the year. Again, another example is technology. There are a number of people who didn't plan on using Zoom, from, at all, or more than beyond the free account, right? But now you find yourself in a situation where if you were using Zoom for meetings, you were able to limit your business to 45 minutes. But now that the country is on lockdown for all intents and purposes, you're no longer going to be able to just utilize a free Zoom account. You're going to need to use Zoom, for probably very much of what you do, employee meetings, office visits, so to speak, meetings with funders and all that good stuff. And if you're fortunate enough to be a nonprofit, and if you have a TechSoup account, then you can use your TechSoup account to actually get Zoom and other technology for a very, very, very deep discount. So just go to zoom.com and shop around for your technology needs. Alrighty, so on the right side, we're looking at the internal dynamics. And the first box here is people, right? So who are your people? What are their positions? And how can you strengthen your team? So what do the people do, right? And how are you going to strengthen them so that they come out on the other side of this crisis better able to cope, but most importantly, their leadership skills are developed, their management skills are developed and enhanced, and their program management skills, depending on what their position is. So how do you strengthen their skills? Then you ask yourself, are there any processes that need to change? Are there any training opportunities that they can take advantage of? And if you need to train your staff, Nonprofit Utopia is here. We can help increase their leadership skills. We can help them also understand better how to develop stronger programs, how to better forecast their budgets and all that good stuff. So if you have questions about how we can help train your staff, we can do that through consulting. We can do it through coaching. We can do it through membership. You can give me a call at 773-571-3886, or you can email me at ValerieFLeonard@nonprofitutopia.com if you want to find out how we can better help your training needs, right? There may be opportunities too to look at individual approaches to doing work. Everybody has a different work style, and some of your employees are going to be able to adapt to these new changes better than others, given their, personality, given their ability to work with the new technology, given their knowledge of technology, and all that good stuff, right? So people's performance may be a little bit different in this new environment, and your job as the leader within that organization is to be able to pull out the best of every one of your persons to deliver the goods and services that you are accustomed to in this environment. And the next thing you want to look at is projects. Again, we were talking about those strategic projects. So what are the strategic projects and processes that could advance your organization? And again, you probably already had a laundry list of projects before COVID-19. Now that COVID-19 is here, your priorities for those projects may have changed. And in fact, there may be some new projects that have emerged as a result of COVID-19. So in those cases, you need to list those projects and prioritize them. And then also, what's the cost associated? So with every one of these boxes, so with every opportunity, you have to find out what the associated cost is. So what's the cost of actually taking advantage of these opportunity areas? What's the cost or the potential cost of the risks if in the event those risks actually did come to fruition, the negative consequences that you were looking at could happen, what if they actually happened? How much is that going to cost you? Looking at your people, accommodating them to bring the best out of them, giving them the tools that they need, giving them the training that they need, actually developing new processes and procedures. How much is that going to cost? Looking at the projects and what it is going to cost to implement them in the new normal. If there are any new projects on the horizon, that have come about as COVID-19, what is the cost associated with it? So given all of that, you want to take into account what your current cash position is, what your cash needs are. So look at what sources of cash you have. So look at your current funders, look at any rents you might have coming in. Sometimes you might have ownership in a building. If you have a stake in the business, look at how much money could come in from that. So look at all of those cash sources, and then look at your new costs and see whether or not you have enough revenue to cover those costs. And you want to be able to project that from month to month. And we're not going to go into detail here because we did that last week and I don't want to be redundant. So if you want to get a refresher on how you can project your revenue, how you can project your costs in this new environment, I encourage you strongly to look at last week's Crowdcast, where we showed you how to do those projections, and we also showed you how to apply for SBA disaster loan funds. All right, so after you get control of your current situation, and I'm talking about your current situation internally, you're doing that emergency stuff. What do we need to do just to keep our doors open? So after you assess that, then you start to look externally, right? So you're going to need to revisit your community needs assessment. Again, I'm not going to go into detail as to how to develop a community needs assessment. We have a past webinar on how to develop community needs assessments. In fact, we have two webinars on developing community needs assessments and making sure that you can also develop strategies to meet community needs in an environment where it seems that there are too many organizations competing. So when you do your brainstorm to decide what needs to change, some of the questions you might want to ask are, what are the issues that impact the community? How do current developments at the federal, state, and local levels impact the community? Who are your target clients? Are those targets the same? Are you finding yourself in a situation where you're going to have to actually change targets? Get rid of, stop serving certain clients because you don't have the capacity to do that? Are you finding yourself serving new clients because the signs of the times dictate that need, right? What can your organization do to alleviate your clients' pain? Who else is serving this target? How are they serving? In fact, will those players still be around after the dust settles? How are the other players going to be impacted? If they don't have to close their doors, how are they changing the way they serve their clients? How are they changing their target markets as well, or their target clients? And even sometimes their target markets, their geography, and their the target communities. And then you need to think about, are there new services that should be provided? Can you provide them? Do you need a partner in order to provide them? And again, what's going to be the cost? The next thing you need to do is reassess your vision statement, because remember, your vision statement should not be done just because you have a vision. Your vision statement needs to be done within the context of what the community needs. So I'm assuming that most organizations have a vision statement. And if you don't have a vision statement, this is a wonderful time to create a statement. And if you have a statement, this is a time to reassess it and see if it needs to be tweaked in any way given the new environment. So a vision is a strong, vivid picture of how the world is going to change as a result of your organization's intervention. So that could include strategies, it can include programs and services. And in light of COVID-19, has the vision your organization holds, has it changed any? And if so, in what ways? And again, your vision statement needs to change as a result. So when you develop your vision statement or tweak it, some of the same questions that you asked when you started your organization or when you started the program are, what did success look like? So when you started, hopefully you wanted to ask yourself, what does success look like? And in this case, you're asking, what did success look like for us back in, before COVID-19? So before 2020 hit us, what did success look like for us? What does success look like today? And does it still look the same? And if it looks the same, does the way you get there change, given our new reality, right? Or does success actually look different? Are you going to have to um, lower your expectations given the uncertainty that COVID-19 has changed? And, we don't have time to really go through this. This is an exercise that you and your board and your leadership team and major stakeholders need to go through. And here is what I think is a great visioning canvas that On Strategy developed. And this can be adapted for nonprofits as well. And one of the first things you do, the way this works, is you have in the center your vision statement, right? And in that vision statement is going to be impacted by a number of things, such as the people and the organizational stability, right? It's going to be impacted by operational excellence and innovation. It's going to be impacted by customer growth and retention. And it's also going to be impacted by your financial results and impact. So given all of those factors, what will be your new vision? And I like this model because it helps you to dream, but it gives you the ability to temper your dream. Your dreams will be grounded in reality. So remember those questions that we went through on the last slide. Remember when we were talking about assessing your current state. So the questions that you fleshed out to assess your current state, you want to use those as a foundation to flesh out your visioning canvas. So when you look at your people and organizational stability, look at the resources that your people are going to need in order to survive in this current climate. And then two, with operational excellence and innovation, what processes are you going to have to streamline? What processes actually go out the window as a result of the new normal? And how do you measure impact? So in this case, we think about performance management systems, putting your goals and objectives into play, as well as your key performance indicators. And then when we look at our customer growth and retention, remember your customers are people who utilize your programs and services. Your customers are also your foundations, right? So what strategies are you going to engage in order to raise funds, in order to better serve your clients? How are you going to gain new clients, especially if you have a fee-for-service model? How are you going to gain clients so that you can keep cash flow coming in? How are you going to gain new funders? How are you going to replace funders that you may have lost as a result of COVID-19, right? So how are you going to bring on new customers? How are you going to retain the customers you have? The customers that you lose, how are you going to get them back? All right. And again, what are the financial results and impact of all of these activities? And given all of those factors that impact your vision, what exactly will your vision be? So what is your vision? What's the big picture? How do you vision that the world will be a better place, a different place for your clients, for your communities, as a result, as a direct result of your organization's activities? And why do you do what you do? So this is a little bit different from your mission statement. Your mission statement does have your why, but you want to also reiterate your why in your vision. Okay? So I hope that has been helpful to you. So after you look at the community, after you develop your vision, then you want to look at your SWOT analysis. And if you already have a strategic plan in place, you already have developed a SWOT analysis. And as you may know or may not know, a SWOT analysis is looking at your strengths and your weaknesses, right? And those are strengths and weaknesses that are internal to the organization, right? And then you want to look at the opportunities and threats. The opportunities and threats are things that you have no control over, right? And a huge threat for everybody in the country, actually everybody in the world, is this COVID-19. So I would imagine that when you did your strategic plan the first time, you did not include COVID-19 in your SWOT. So you're going to need to revisit it. Okay, so this SWOT analysis is different from the first SWOT analysis. The first SWOT analysis we did, we were basically looking at your operations, right? And looking at ways that you can immediately respond to a current crisis. This SWOT analysis is more strategic. It's looking at the current environment, but it's also helping you to position yourself for a new environment beyond COVID-19. So you're getting beyond the critical emergency phase, right, to a more long-term phase, and looking at your new normal and how you're going to survive. So again, if you already have a strategic plan in place, you need to revisit your SWOT analysis. And the way this SWOT analysis works is, you're looking at your strengths, you're looking at your weaknesses, you're looking at your opportunities, and you're looking at your threats. So under strengths, you want to look at your key attributes. What is it about your organization that is strong? And, some of the things that made you strong before COVID-19 may not necessarily be the things that make you strong now. There may be some new strengths that you've uncovered as a result of this particular situation. So you want to look at what it is that makes you strong from an operational standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, from a fundraising standpoint. So basically, assessing your organizational capacity and then looking at what is strong, right? And then once you know what it is that's strong about your particular organization, and we do have assessment tools that you can take advantage of. Our members can download an assessment tool right in our nonprofit Utopia community. And then once you look at the strengths, you want to look at ways that you can capitalize on those strengths. So what is it, how do you really, really focus on your strengths to push yourself forward, right? And then you want to look at your weaknesses. Again, after you have done that assessment of your organization, what is it that is a weakness or a challenge, and that is specific to the organization, not to the environment, but those things about your organization that will make it difficult. A number of organizations found that one of their weaknesses is they didn't feel that they had the technology to engage clients, on a daily day basis, right? So that might be a weakness. There may be other weaknesses that you uncover. And given that you have weaknesses, sometimes you can't get rid of the weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. How do we shore up those weaknesses? And same thing is for your organization. How do you minimize those weaknesses? How do you make improvements so that those weaknesses won't kill you, right? So in the instance of an organization, they may have had the technology to do their financial reporting, but they were in an office environment and may not necessarily have had a cloud situation. So now that we're under quarantine, that organization might consider, if they had QuickBooks before, to automate their accounting. If they had a desktop situation going on, they might consider getting a cloud situation going on so that people can access the financials remotely. Okay, so now we're going to look at opportunities and threats. These are those things that are external that we have no control over. And so we need to revisit what the situation was like when we started our strategic plan, or if we don't have a strategic plan in place, let's look at what it is now. Regardless of whether you're revisiting or just starting, you're going to have to also take into account what the opportunities are. If there were opportunities that you had in the past that may have gone away as a result of COVID-19, then you just take those off and replace them with other opportunities, right? So while the COVID-19 pandemic is a threat to our organization, some organizations could very well close, right, as a result of COVID-19 shutting down our clients, right? And and shutting them down either in terms of their mobility or their ability to pay or their ability to access services remotely, those are real threats to us. But at the same time, COVID-19 provides opportunities to us. They provide opportunities in that there are new funding sources. Funders are getting together, businesses are getting together. Um, Municipalities and states and our federal government are getting together to provide new resources. So that provides new opportunities to tap into new businesses, new opportunities to develop new programs and services, new opportunities to develop projects, new opportunities to actually monetize some of the skills that your organization has. So take stock of some of the skills that your organization has and how you can maybe charge fees for services to consult with other organizations. That is a real opportunity. And again, when we talk about threats, I mentioned before that, the threats to your organization may be, the fact that you could lose funds, you could lose funders, you could lose your ability to be in touch with your clients, because in some cases, your clients may not have access to the technology that they may need in order to access your services. So if that becomes a threat, you mitigate that by finding ways to put that technology in your client's hand, and if not in their hands, making sure that they can access it. So again, that's one way of mitigating it. And I won't belabor that point. I think you understand what I mean. So now that we have assessed the current situation, we have shown you how to develop an action plan. And if you need a deeper dive, we do have a crowdcast on how to actually do the action planning, where we actually go into the nuts and bolts of creating that plan. We also have a crowdcast that will show you how to project your finances. So now that we have assessed the situation, we showed you how to actually get on top of the situation, and we showed you how to do a new vision, create a new vision. What will be your plan right now? What are some of the actions you can do to preserve your organization? And here's some of the recommended action steps. Immediately, the first thing you want to do is assess your current situation. You want to develop cash projections, and you want to apply for SBA disaster recovery funds. And if there are any emergency funds that you know of from other sources, you want to tap into those right now. Within your first month, you want to develop business continuity plans, and then you want to seek emergency general operating and other funding from foundations. And then you also might consider developing emergency fundraisers, online fundraisers, or other ways you can develop funds, a phone-a-thon or something like that, or develop an emergency product. It could be an ebook or something like that. Or again, you can develop a funding stream, for consultation. Your organization may have a specific expertise that other organizations don't have, and you might be able to market that as a new service. So you want to think of all of those new ways of bringing in revenue right now, all of that within the first month. And then in the second month, you want to reassess your community needs based on the new normal, right? So what's different in the community? What do they need that you can provide? And then you also want to revisit your strategic plan. Whereas you thought you were going to revisit your strategic plan within a year, you now find yourself revisiting your strategic plan, within months. So look at the strategic plan, see if it's still relevant. Those parts that are obsolete, I encourage you to change those. And if you need help, we have a number of resources in the nonprofit Utopia community to help you. You also want to negotiate your loans and lines of credit with banks. If you have them, you might want to renegotiate better terms or increase your availability to draw down on cash. And you also want to implement your business continuity plans. Alrighty. And these are things that you need to be doing within the first 2 months. And then after you kind of, after you find yourself at a point where you can breathe, then you engage in the more long-term planning, like strategic planning, like the program design and development and evaluation. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to open it up for questions. If you are watching from Facebook Live, you can post your questions right there on Facebook Live, and I will answer your questions just as soon as I can. I can't see what you're posting. If you want to join us now and post a question, you can go to crowdcast.io/e/action-planning-for-the, and that will bring you to this forum where you can actually post your question. Otherwise, I will talk to you afterwards on Facebook. Same thing for YouTube Live. If you're watching on YouTube Live, if you have questions, be sure to post them in the forum. And if you want to join us here, you can. And if not, I will respond just as soon as I can. All right. So if you have any questions, please post. All right. Right now, I don't see any questions. If you have any questions afterwards, you can send them to me. You can email me at ValerieFLeonard@nonprofitutopia.com. And Nonprofit Utopia members, you can feel free to post in the forum. We can continue this discussion in the Nonprofit Utopia forum. If you're interested in joining Nonprofit Utopia, you can join us at nonprofitutopia.mn.co. You can follow us on Twitter at Nonprofit Utopia, and then you can also find us on Facebook. We got a number of resources on Twitter as well as Facebook that you can take advantage of. All righty. So it looks like we don't have any questions. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and you take care. All right. Bye now.